Dr. Farber, how do you think cancer will eventually be controlled?
I think that cancer will be controlled eventually by chemical means. Perhaps not by the use of any of the chemicals presently available, but chemicals which will be much more sensitive and delicate in attacking that portion of the cancer cell, biochemistry, which is of greatest importance to the cancer cell's continued survival.
Can you say when cancer will be eliminated, when it will be controlled altogether?
No, I can say this, that it is my belief that cancer can be controlled, that the amount of knowledge we now have from basic science and from clinical investigation permits this feeling of controlled optimism, given the scientific brain power which we see around us and which we see active today, given resources and equipment, support for such work. I believe that very rapid progress can be made, and I believe firmly that there is enough knowledge today to warrant an optimistic outlook.
Dr. Palade, you made a remark just a while ago, Dr. Palade, about basic research being the medicine of tomorrow. What was that?
That's correct. Basic research is the medicine of tomorrow. And as I said, tomorrow is coming very fast these days. Well, would you like to have some examples?
Yes, let me have them.
Well, it was simply basic research which established that animal cells can be cultured in vitro and maintained in vitro. It was also basic research which established that such cells can support the development within them of various types of virus, including poliovirus. These were the basic premises needed for the development of vaccines. And these vaccines, which are now very popular, have been, as you know, produced for polio, for measles. They are going to be produced soon for many other virus diseases. Well, they wouldn't have been possible without the elements of basic research I just mentioned.
Thank you, Doctor. Do you see a mechanical pump taking over completely from the work of the heart?
Well, yes, I think that this is definitely a feasible project. We now have devices, mechanical devices, in the artificial heart-lung machine that are being used daily all over the country in many centers that take over the function of the heart for a matter of hours. This in itself establishes the fact that the heart function can be taken over, so that it's not a great step in thinking to realize that it's possible to extend this period, and indeed to extend it for a much longer period than hours, or days, or weeks. It will require the combined efforts and investigations of many disciplines, both biologic and physical, and in our own laboratory, as this is well represented by men in various scientific disciplines, engineering, chemical, metallurgy, hydraulics, and then the various biological sciences. And we are at the moment engaged primarily in the development of a pump that can be used for temporary support of the left ventricle, and this is what we've applied clinically at the present time. Of course, we're in the very early stages of this development, and I think
Dr. Farber, can you tell us briefly a little about your work?
I've been concerned mainly in the field of the use of chemicals in the treatment of cancer, which is disseminated throughout the body, a field called chemotherapy. This is now practiced in a great many institutions throughout the country and other parts of the world, and depends upon the research carried out in the laboratory by people in biochemistry, experimental pathology, and pharmacology. It concerns the use of chemicals injected into the vein or into the body or taken by mouth, which is carried by the bloodstream then to the various parts of the body wherever there is cancer. And the hope is that cancer which cannot be treated in any other way will be destroyed by the chemical which is so introduced into the bloodstream. This has been done now successfully by a number of people against a number of different cancers, but the field is still in its infancy. It is waiting for much more information from basic scientists of the kind that represented here by Dr. Palade, and it is waiting also for a great deal more careful work in the clinic on patients where this new form of treatment can be given primarily for the good of the patient as part of the total care of the patient. We have made great progress in this field in many parts of the world against acute leukemia, chronic leukemia, lymphoma, Hodgkin's disease, against tumors such as the choriocarcinoma of one of the rarer forms of cancer of the uterus, and even cancer of the eye in newborn children, the common retinoblastoma. That work was done here first in the Columbia College of Physicians and Surgeons in the ophthalmology group, and now against the Wilms tumor of the kidney, which is one of the common forms of cancer in the infant and the child. Even after the tumor has spread from the kidney to the lungs, it is possible by combining small amounts of a chemical, an antibiotic called actinomycin D, which was discovered by Dr. Waxman, the man who gave us streptomycin against tuberculosis in 1940. Combining this chemical with small amounts of radiotherapy, we're able to destroy in more than half of the cases evidences of tumor in the lungs.
Dr. Farber, what are the chances of this treatment being used to combat adult lung cancer? Is there any chance of this being successfully used in the near future?
Perhaps not this chemical, but other chemicals are being tried now against lung cancer, and there are evidences of headway being made. We still do not have a specific chemical which will destroy the commonest form of lung cancer, although life may be prolonged in many patients by the use of some of the other chemicals which are presently employed by men who are expert in this field.
Why has it been so successful in the treatment of children and yet has not been used too much in the treatment of adults?
It has been used in the treatment of adults, but not nearly enough, and not nearly enough in the treatment of children with cancer either. This kind of caring for these patients and doing the unable to understand what is going on in a cancer cell. And his work forms a solid foundation for a tremendous amount of cancer research which is now going on in a more rational manner than would otherwise be possible.
You have to. Okay. Well, I just wanted to get Dr. Farber. I missed that part about the control of cancer, and so I'd like to ask you a question on that, and then we'll go talk.
I speak of negating or neutralizing the biochemical principle which is responsible for transforming the normal cell into a cancer cell. This it makes no difference whether the biochemical principle is bound up within a virus, which one day may be proved to be of importance in human cancer. So far, there is no such proof, but there is proof, as you know, of the relationship of viruses to cancer in mice and in other laboratory animals. We hope that the use of a chemical then will be much more specific and will hit the target much more directly than we're able to do with the chemicals which are presently available.
Can you tell us just how your work has figured in this, your work in cells?
Figured in what? In the cancer problem?
Yes.
Well, as simply as a means of establishing the basis in terms of structure and in terms of function of a cell, which under certain conditions becomes neoplastic. Okay? For the moment, if you wish, our science has established primarily the controls so to say, of the neoplastic cell at this particular level. A lot of work is carried now on the morphology as well, very varied, by the way, and on the altered function of neoplastic cells. Okay? But we do not understand yet clearly the mechanisms responsible for the transition from the normal to the neoplastic state. Okay? And therefore, for the moment, we do not know how to control or how to prevent this transition.
Well, Dr. debakey, you won the Lasker Award last year for your work on heart, and this year you're the head of the jury. Can you tell us what strides have been made? For instance, you have this Mexican woman, you used a mechanical pump to restore her to life. Will you tell us what the condition is now? How is she?
Well, she's fine. Let me say, though, that it's a great honor not only to receive the Lasker Award, but also to be chairman of the jury in the selection of the awardees for this coming year. And I think that the jury has made an excellent selection, and the two men it's selected for this year. I think, too, that this symbolizes the progress that's taking place in medicine and health at both ends of the spectrum. One end, the basic science spectrum, represented by Dr. Palade, and the other, the clinical science spectrum, represented at the end of the spectrum, representing clinical sciences, represented by Dr. Farber. In a sense, too, it symbolizes the kind of investigation that's taking place today with men in basic sciences, not always representing either biologic science. People now, medicine, medical science is now supported by all of the disciplines, including the physical sciences, in its work. I mean, the use of electronics, the use of various types of equipment has brought in the physical sciences into medicine. And it's symbolic of the kind of investigation taking place today, and of course it also represents the need for greater support in these areas. It's only through this kind of activity and through research of this nature, both truly basic at the most fundamental cellular level, represented by the work of Palade, and the effort to apply this kind of knowledge at the clinical level, represented by the work of Dr. Farber, that we are going to make the advancement in the health field that I'm sure we will make and have made.
Well, now, in your own field, the heart, Dr. debakey,
we can look forward to much greater developments in the future, not only in our own laboratory, but in many other laboratories that are now engaged in this kind of work in the country. And the more we can get working in this field, the sooner we're going to realize these objectives.
One thing, Dr. debakey, do you find that, has your research found that smoking is highly injurious to the heart as well as a probable cause of cancer?
Well, I think smoking is injurious to health in general, and I don't think there's any doubt about the fact that excessive smoking is definitely injurious to the heart and the circulatory system.
Thank you, Doctor.